I was looking towards it and I saw this amazing, pristine future for us. And I'll give a quick description of it. It's so different than right now. Number one, 80 to 90% of us aren't here anymore. And there's no evident government or military that I can perceive at that space. But what I do perceive is there's this society that is existing in true unconditional light and love for each other.
I'm very happy to bring you Vinnie Tolman today. At the age of 25, Vincent Tolman was pronounced dead and put in a body bag. Nearly an hour later, he miraculously came back to life. And we are going to discuss Vinnie's experience today. He's come to share it with us. Thank you so much, Vinnie, for being my guest. I am so excited to hear about your experience.
I'm excited to be here. It's really exciting to share my experience. It's not for everybody, but it sure changed my life. So it maybe just hearing it might have an influence on you too.
I think definitely it will. It's a very profound experience. And so you were just 25 years old, you were pronounced dead. Tell me what happened. How did you die?
Well, I'd taken a brand new supplement. Me and my best friend, we both took this new supplement. We had ordered it from Thailand. And what we didn't know is the product that came from overseas was 20 times stronger than the American stuff. So we took our normal little bottle cap of this liquid supplement, and instantly we both felt sick. We knew something was off, and that's really what did it. My my blessing or my curse was that I made it into the single use bathroom first, and I locked the door. He knew I went in that bathroom and he knew it was locked, so he went out and collapsed on a dining table. My buddy did, and they were able to call 911, get an ambulance there, and take him away right away. But no one else saw me go into the bathroom. So about an hour later, they, because a customer wanted to use that restroom, they opened the bathroom to find my dead body on the floor. And that's where my experience starts, and where it kind of takes a different turn. I wasn't dead for good, not yet.
That must have, oh gosh, you weren't even conscious. So you're laying on the bathroom floor dead. And so what do? They called an ambulance for you and you went to the
Yeah,
hospital?
they called an ambulance. The medical team that showed up to process the body, they did pronounce the body dead on arrival, or DOA. They went ahead and put the body in a body bag, and they put it in the back of the ambulance with a rookie medic. They set a rookie back there to kind of babysit the body while they did paperwork with all the witnesses inside the restaurant. About 40 minutes or so later, they got done with all the paperwork and they were leaving the scene of where they found this body when this rookie medic felt something tell him that this one wasn't dead. And he broke protocol, which could have gotten him fired. He was brand new. He broke protocol. He opened up the body bag. He started feeling around for a pulse, and he didn't find one. But what he did find is on the inside of the leg where the femoral artery is. That's the big artery. He did feel kind of a spark or an ignition, almost like a shock. And with that, that was enough for him. That was enough of a sign that he wanted to try to resuscitate this body. And he did. He hooked up the body to a defib machine. He force fed oxygen into the lungs. While he was doing that, the defib went off. There was no result. Defib went a second time, and with the second time, it got a single heartbeat. And then with the third defib, he got a steady, faint heartbeat, but it was steady. And one of the great miracles of all this is when they did that, when he got the heart started, they were only a few hundred feet from a hospital. So they were able to pull right into a hospital and hand the body over to a trauma team that was ready and poised to take care of things.
I can't even imagine the odds of that happening?
Well, documented from the time they pronounced DOA to the time that the heart actually started with the defib assistance, it was 47 minutes exactly. So it was documented 47 minutes from pronouncement to resuscitation. But there's estimations that I was dead almost an hour before that. So it was well over an hour overall, if not maybe an hour and a half or close to hour 45 that I was dead total.
There's something to be said there because you don't seem like you have severe damage from a lack of oxygen. You look healthy. How did you survive that without any sort of, well, do you have any sort of lingering damage in your body?
There was some, when they brought the body back, it went through quite a lot of seizures. And so I ended up having some dental issues over the years. In fact, I've replaced almost all my molars. They got hyper fractured because of the seizures. The body was seizing so hard. The fractures didn't show up right away. They took a few years to open up. Um, but yeah, I've essentially just replaced all of my molars. That's it. That's the only lingering evidence. Now, my teenage daughter might want to argue that though, and say there's some brain deadness still, but I think that just comes from being a dad.
Oh, yeah, the teenagers will always say that. I think my teenage daughter would say that about me too. So, what happened when you were dead? Do you remember that?
I do. Now, once they brought my body back, I was still brain dead. I was brain dead for 3 days. And during those 3 days, I was off gallivanting in the real existence, in the real world. And that is the eternal life, the eternal world. And I got to see who and what I really was. I got to meet a guide. Right away, I met this guide. He introduced himself to me as Drake, and he told me that he was there to just guide me to go wherever I wanted to go. And he asked me, where do you want to go? And I I thought of all these different places that I wanted to go, like the moon, or I wanted to go to the Palladian galaxy, or to the Sirius galaxy, or to go look at Betelgeuse up close. Like I had all these ideas in my head, but then it hit me that there was this tremendous amount of love coming from this man, and it was just flowing onto me, just like a river of unconditional love. And so I looked at him in the eyes and I said, Drake, I want to go wherever that love's coming from. That love that I feel coming off of you, I want to go wherever that is. And he smiled and said that that's your home. That's coming from your home. That's where you originally came from. And I said, well, let's do it. Let's go. And he was excited because that was his home as well. So he was going to take us both to our home. And we began the journey. We began the journey. I thought I had access to the VIP door in heaven because I was raised Christian. I was raised religious, like extremely religious. So even though I had spent about 4 to 5 years away from God, I had come back and I was actively back in church and living in God's world, I would say, of religion. And Drake, he smiled at me and he said, I love that you think you can just get in, but there's a little more to it than just believing you can get in. He helped me understand that I did have to accept some new principles or modify some existing principles that I had as belief systems. And once I did that, I could get in. I could get into the heavenly realm. So we began our journey. And I told him, I know it's going to start with love. Love's the most important thing in the universe. And he smiled and he looked at me and he said, I love that you think it's love, but it's actually not love, it's authenticity. And he helped me understand that until I could figure out who I really was, I couldn't actually give love or receive love. I could mirror love, but I couldn't give or receive actual love. until I was authentic, until I knew who I really was. So he showed me that in my life, I was putting up a lot of masks. I was wearing a mask for my construction crews that I worked on. I was wearing a different mask when I would go work on TV and film. I was wearing a different mask when I would go with my parents somewhere or go to church on Sundays. And so I had all these different masks. He showed me that beneath all those masks, there was one person, there was one being. And then I had to figure out how to allow myself to be that person, to be that being, no matter where I went. And he showed me how to do it. He showed me how to burn and throw away all those different masks and allow my real authentic self to come out. And that included my vulnerabilities, my insecurities, my weaknesses, my all the things that we try to hide in this life. I needed to be honest with myself and allow them to show. And in doing so, I was going to know who my real friends were, who my real allies are in this life. And more importantly, I would actually know how to love someone and I would know how to receive love. So, authenticity was the most important thing that he taught me. Then I told him, okay, next it's love, isn't it? I know it's love. And he said, no, it's still not love. The next thing is that I needed to learn why I was on earth. And I told him, I go, hey, Drake, I was raised Christian. I know why we're on earth. We're here to be judged, good or bad. God keeps some of us and throws away the rest of us. And then he looked at me and he explained, he said, do you think God's a good parent? Do you think God loves you, truly loves you? And I said, yes. And he explained, well, if God truly loves us, why would he throw some of us away? And that was a mind blower right there. He helped me understand that our life here is so that we can learn. It's not so that we can be some of us kept and some of us thrown away. We're all kept, but the question is, how much are we kept? Like how close are we kept to the Creator? And that was another eye opener for me because I thought there was a part of me that was worth throwing away because I made lots of big mistakes. And Drake showed me that no, that even on my worst day, even while I was actively in, quote unquote sin, I was still loved and I was never in a point of being thrown away or disposable. And as I was just trying to take that in, then Drake showed me, he's like, now it's about love. So the third principle that he brought me to is love. And I needed to love everyone, including the hardest one to love, and that's myself. But my authentic self, not who I think I am, but who I really am. And again, just a big eye opener. And he showed me that as I could learn how to love myself, I could awaken a voice inside of me, and it's the voice of God, that our Creator has a voice built into all of us. And the key to opening up that voice is love, true, unconditional self-love. And when we can turn on that voice can guide us. It can help us have a strong connection to our Creator. And when we have that strong connection to our Creator, we have a strong connection to the universe. And he showed me how to turn that on, how to activate and turn on that inner voice. And that's when he brought me to the next principle, which is the fifth principle I learned about. And that was to use technology responsibly. He didn't show me this, but I learned it later, that technology is designed to replace our eyes. There's a reason that Siri is Iris spelled backwards. There's a reason why an iPhone is used to see the world. our technology is designed specifically to replace our vision. So much so that if you can control the vision of what people see, you control the behaviors and the actions of those said people. And Drake showed me that it's vitally important that we learn to use technology responsibly. He taught me about this precious moment in the morning and this precious moment in the evening called the hour of power. That it's vitally important for us to learn how to use the hour of power. That's the 30 minutes when we first wake up. That's the 30 minutes right before we go to bed. That what we put in that space, that becomes who we are. That becomes who we worship. And for some of us, we're putting entertainment in that space. Some of us are putting news in that space. But I was shown how vitally important it is that that becomes the frame of who we are. We need to frame ourselves in light, frame ourselves in good energy. That we need to put God in that space if we can. That using that hour of power, we can amplify and strengthen our connection with the Creator. And that led me to the sixth thing that he taught me, and that was to release prejudice, all prejudice. And I almost scoffed at Drake because I go, Drake, I'm not prejudiced at all. I have two adopted sisters that are not Caucasian. And I told him, of all of my friends, I think I'm the least prejudiced, that there's no prejudice in me. And he showed me that I was seeing the world as all the prejudiced people over here and me and all the non-prejudice over there. Then he asked me, well, if you feel that good about it, how do you feel about prejudiced people? And I started to go off. I was like, I hate prejudiced people. They're so evil. They're so bad. They're so ignorant. They've been taught the wrong things. Most people are prejudiced because of their own victimhood, not because of any learning or good things that have come to them. And as I'm sitting there speaking about prejudiced people, he showed a little effigy of me standing on the non-prejudice side. And he lifted me up and he like brought me over to the prejudice side and dropped me down. And I was so upset at that. Like I was like, Drake, how could you say I'm prejudiced? I love all races, I love all religions, I love all lifestyles. And he said, well, let me ask you again. How do you feel about prejudiced people? And that's when I had the eye-opening experience that I had to learn to love all people, no matter the race, the lifestyle, the religion. I had to also learn to love even prejudiced people. That they didn't get a free pass on my anti-prejudice or my unconditional love from God. That I had to dish that out evenly, even to the prejudiced people. And he also showed me, though, that some prejudiced people could be cured of their prejudice with a little unconditional love. And that is the true solution in this world. That is the true solution to prejudice. It's unconditional love. You shift people out of their paradigm by proving that you love them even as they hate you. And that, again, another huge eye opener when he showed me that. And that brought me to the next principle, which is we all have the power of creation, every single one of us. And that power is our thoughts. And if we can learn how to control our thoughts, we can learn how to control our universe, or our you inversed. Our you inside out is the universe. And we can control the universe, our universe, if we control our thoughts. And that if we look for harm, we will find harm. If we look for good, we will find good. That our thoughts allow us to find what we seek. So how important it is for us to learn to respect and love the power of creation. And that brought me to the eighth principle, that is to avoid negative influences. Because if our thoughts are the power to create, how important it is for us to learn that power and avoid the negative influences. Now, that doesn't mean abandon the negative aspect of self, because all of us have great good and all of us have great bad within us, all of us. And we don't just abandon our shadow, we don't just abandon the lower self, but we don't have to feed it either. And we can feed the light, we can feed the love within us by choosing to avoid negative influences and encourage positive influences at every point of our life. And that led me to the ninth principle, which there is purpose in evil. That for us to come here to Earth School, there had to be good choices and bad choices. That if we took away evil or we took away the bad choices, we take away the opportunity to learn and grow. And that you can't have one without the other. Evil is part of the learning process. Having a bad option is just as important as having a good option. Because our growth is when we choose our good options, or we choose a bad option and we learn from it to choose a good option in the future. And that brought me to the 10th principle, which is the last principle that Drake taught me, that we are all one, all of us. That no matter what we look like, no matter what language we speak, no matter what religion we follow or don't follow, we are all fingers on God's hands, every single one of us. And that if I harm or I hurt a brother or sister of mine, I am harming and I am hurting myself. And Drake showed me the principle of the pointed finger. That when we point a finger, I can say, hey, that person is a bad person. And what I'm saying is I'm pointing the energy towards them, but I'm also pointing that energy towards God. That God must be bad if I think they are bad. But then turn that hand around and I have three fingers pointing back towards myself. And so as I point out something negative in someone else, I am pointing that same energy back to myself threefold. But what's really beautiful about that, the principle of the pointed finger, is it goes towards negative and positive. So I can point that finger and say, wow, look at what a great job they did. Look how amazing they are. So pointing out the good things, it gives credit to God, but also gives credit to self for the good things that we do. And that anytime we feel we are missing something in our life, if we use that principle of the pointed finger, let's say we're missing happiness or fulfillment, go out in the world and give happiness and fulfillment to someone else. And as you do that, you'll be also doing that for God and giving yourself 3 times as much back. And that's the beauty of this life, that we get what we put in. If we put in bad, we get bad. If you feel in your life you're constantly a victim, look at your thought deposits. Look at the deposits of energy you're putting in your universe. Somewhere you're putting negative out and you're getting negative back. So shift that around and start putting positive out. And eventually you will start getting that positive back. It may take a while, especially if you're in a destructive pattern, but it will happen. Keep doing it long enough. You will watch the benefits come swiftly. And as I got through that 10th principle of understanding that we are all one, I was seeing this heavenly realm. I saw the far off land, and it is land. I saw that this space, it felt like you could put a million Earths across it. It felt vastly larger than our Earth. And I touched down. My feet actually came down into the grass. And as they did, I felt like I was finally home. I had this huge release or relief come over me as my toes came down and touched the grass. And I felt the grass itself like hug me. It hugged my feet. And as soon as my energetic skin, because I did have a body there, which was not what we're taught about here. I had an energetic body there. As my energetic body came down on this grass, I could taste the tremendous power, sweetness, and love that was in the grass. I could also see colors, um, just iridescent colors vibrating and oscillating off of the grass. I could also hear a symphony of frequencies coming off of the grass. And as soon as I touched it, I knew that I was loved so much by the energy of what this grass is. And I felt like I wasn't worthy of that kind of love. And no one could be. But it didn't change anything, whether I was worthy or not. It didn't change how much that grass loved me. And I felt as if I was finally charging. I was finally plugged in and charging the way that we were all meant to charge. And as I'm kind of geeking out about this grass, Drake smiled and he gestured to me and he said, "If you think the grass is good, you should see the flowers." And I lost it. I was like, "There's flowers? What? How could it? That's crazy." I thought that was so amazing that there was also flowers. And within a second, he had my consciousness like shrunk down and sitting on the petal of a flower. And I was viewing it as if I was like a bee or an insect. I was seeing up close this liquid light just flowing in and out of the petals of these flowers. And again, I could feel the sweetness, the perfume, the grand love that was just vibrating consistently and coming off of these flowers. And I could feel that the flower itself wanted to just love me so pristinely and so divinely, just love me. And then Drake came up on me again and said, "If you think the flowers are good, you should see the trees." And again, I lost it. I was like, "Oh my gosh, there's trees. How can there be trees?" And I got to plug into this ancient network of a forest. And this forest had to be eons old, just millions and millions of years old, if not billions. And I could feel the divine intelligence of all these trees working together and sending love energy at me and all humanity. And how if there's any mystery of the universe that we want to know about, if we can just get to this place and plug into the trees, all the mysteries of the universe are there, all the answers. As I was enjoying and appreciating this, I felt a little nudge down on my toe. And I looked down, and water had come up out of a stream and it had come over to my feet and it was asking me, it asked, "Do you want us on you?" And I said, "Yes, I do." So the water started at both my feet at the same time. It came up over my feet, my ankles, my calves, my shins, my knees, and it just came up over my whole body. And when it got up to my shoulders, it went down to each arm and it covered each arm. And then it kept going and went up and it completely covered my entire energetic body. And as it did, I could feel that the water itself held divine intelligence and the water held divine love specifically for me. And that's how it is for all of us. That all of these things are extensions of the creator. And that all of them just have this unconditional love for us. And that water, as it came and passed over me, it healed me. It healed all this drama and trauma that I had received over my life, which I had had a very rough life at this point. And I was able to wash away and cleanse myself of so much of the trauma that this life had given me. And when it completed its process, I could feel that it was done. I could feel the warmth, but also the coolness, the flowing energy of this water as it came down and poured off of me, and then it went back over to its little stream and just went back in the stream. But I wasn't wet, not at all. I was still dry, even though I felt electrical. I felt alive electrically because that water had charged every particle of my energetic body. And I was just flowing of electricity now, of this love electricity. And that's when I noticed this building off in the distance, and I wanted to go in. I knew I couldn't go in. I knew that I had hit the limit of how far I could go. For some way, I knew that. And at that point, as I'm observing the building, and I'm just getting excited because I think somehow if I get excited enough, maybe I can get in. As I'm getting my excitement up, that's when Drake came over to me. He put his arm around me. He looked at me square in the eye, like straight in the eye, and he had these eyes that just could reach in and grab your soul and hold it. And as he was looking me in the eye, he said, "Vinny, this is going to be really hard, but it's going to be worth it." And with the saying of that sentence, he gave me this hug, and I felt this like boom, this like huge pulsar of energy come off of the two of us. It felt like it was a God spark, that if there was anything out there that created things, that's what it was. It was the unconditional, pure love of our creator from Drake and me to each other, that we just truly loved each other. And I didn't understand how or why, but I knew he loved me so much. I could feel it so strong. And as I was processing this, all of a sudden I started to hear my brother from Earth. He was saying a special prayer over my body. And I was hearing it as if it was just directly in my ear. I heard him say the words, "I command you to return to your body. I command you to be made whole. I command your soul to return." And when he completed that blessing, that prayer, I was done. I was forced back at that point. Then came the hardest part of my life, which was trying to live after seeing and experiencing something like this. But God knew what God was doing, because shortly after I came back, I had many confirmations about the experience, but one of the strongest was I kept hearing Drake talk to me. He would talk to me every day, but one thing he would tell me almost daily was he would say, "Vinny, it's going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it." And he got me through some very rough months before I was able to meet my wife. And as soon as I met her, we both knew that our lives were now changed just by meeting. And that we joke around that we're in an arranged marriage, that God arranged our marriage because we weren't going to arrange it. And before we'd been on one date, we knew we were going to get married, both of us. We had both had prayerful confirmation. It freaked me out. It freaked her out. We were both just completely freaked out about it. But we both knew it was our path. And it was her light that helped save me. It was her light that helped me want to be here on earth. And it's also the two amazing kids we have that have, put anchors of light around me to keep me here. And I love only a few months after my experience, before I was married, I was in a little town in Wyoming, and I was at a reunion. I was watching this high school put on a presentation about the history of the town of Afton, Wyoming. And as I'm watching this presentation, they're doing a skit, and they're also doing a slideshow of the different founders of the town. and up comes this picture of Drake. And there was no question. I knew unequivocally it was him. I didn't understand though, because it said his name was Charles. It didn't say his name is Drake. And so I was amiss. I was dismayed. I was confused. I recognized his last name as the same last name as my grandmother. So I went to my grandmother and I said, "Hey, tell me about this Charles guy who has the same last name as you." And she said, "You mean great grandpa Drake? He's kind of famous." And at that moment, I was done. At that moment, I knew everything, unequivocally. Everything I went through was not some kind of delusion. It was a very real thing. And I needed to learn to come to terms with it. And over the years, it's been 21 years now, coming up on 22 years that I've had that experience. I've been sharing it now very publicly since 2012. And I'm proud of what I learned, because I am a different person. Am I perfect in any way, shape, or form? Not at all. I am like extremely unperfect. But I'll tell you, I would love to be perfect. I would love to fully emulate what I learned from my experience every single day. And I strive to do that. And, who I've become since my experience is someone who helps others activate their own soul process, their own soul activation. And that's what I'm blessed to do for a living. I'm able to do that. My 9 to 5 is helping people tap into their higher self, helping them activate that voice within them, turn up their intuition and make it louder, so that they can have it just as strong as me and many others. There's many of us out there now that have this turned on. And I feel like all of us have this access. We've just forgotten, because we're looking through the wrong eyes. We need to look through our spirit eyes, the eyes that are trying to be replaced with our technology. But it's through that experience that it allows me to do the work that I do every day and help people release the trauma that they've been running from their whole life, and allow them to love what has happened and grow because of it. And it's an amazing blessing for me and my family to be able to do that. And at the same time, the book is doing really, really well. It's far exceeded everyone's expectations, including the publisher, and we don't market it at all. It's 100% word of mouth, and it's been a phenomenon on its own. It has completely been a phenomenon. Um, there's people that, one gentleman individually, he had plans to take his own life, and he went to fill up his car with gas before he did it, and he found the book on the top of a gas pump, just sitting there. And here he was planning to taste death, and he saw this book called The Light After Death. So he promised himself, "Hey, you've got to read this before you do this." And it's a small book. It's not very thick. Um, by the time he went to page 4, he knew he couldn't do it now. He knew he was activating something within him. Now I got to meet him. And I'm telling you that it's important that we remember who we really are, and don't believe what the world teaches you are. Allow yourself to remember who you really are. And when you do, a lot of answers get given, a lot of answers get fulfilled to help us with the mysteries of life.
That is such a beautiful experience, and I think that I came to tears more than once. And I just love that you met your wife and that you had this deep connection with her without ever even actually going on a date first. Just the whole thing is so beautiful and so powerful. And I want to thank you very much for sharing it with the world, because you're literally changing lives, and you know that you are changing the world. And I do have some questions about your experience. When you said you learned who and what you are, who and what are you?
Well, we think that we are this consciousness that exists inside of our body, but we're not. We are a much higher being than what is inside our body. There's a little piece of us trimmed off of us and put into this body, but we are not that. We are a higher self. We are a higher being that is a collection of these slivers. That's who we really are. And when you combine or bring together these slivers of who we are, these slivers of consciousness, you get to find who you really are. And it's beautiful because within those eyes that stare back at you, you see God and you see the creator, you see creation, you see the whole universe. And it's a beautiful experience to be witness of. And it's truly life changing if you can tap into the understanding of who you really are.
I love that. And that's what you help people realize, right?
Yes.
In your
Yeah.
9 to 5. Yeah. Amazing. And then you you were talking about, and this probably goes along with it too, the number one thing is to be authentic. And
Hmm.
Drake, he taught you how to be authentic. How can we be authentic? Because it is so hard in this world. The persona is, means mask. Our personality is our mask. How
Yeah.
can we open ourselves up to be our authentic selves?
It's hard because we do have so many masks on, but how we do it is imagine you're 5 years old and who you're going to be if you're 5 years old. That's who you really are. Imagine who you're going to be when you're 85 years old. That's who you really are. All these masks we put on between 5 years old to 85 years old, in the 80 years in between, those are all the masks. Those are all the places that we feel vulnerable, because we only put up a mask where we feel vulnerability. You don't put up a mask because you feel strong. You put it up because you're vulnerable. But here's the weird thing: you're missing an opportunity for growth to allow yourself to feel vulnerable about something. Vulnerability is the clay that you can mold growth out of. You can shape your growth finding out your vulnerability. And a lot of times it's our vulnerabilities that tell us who we really are too. And we can't hide from it if we allow ourselves to see it, to recognize it, to deal with it, to love it.
And the hour of power is something that really stood out to me. The half hour, you said it was a half hour before you go to bed and a half hour after you wake up, right?
Yes. Yeah, and if you look at the random Joe Q public out there, he's probably looking at sports or looking at gaming or looking at news or um, unsavory things, whatever. No judgment, but using that half hour, we can put something good there. We can put a podcast that helps us connect to God or connect to the eternities or connect to the universe. Like, we can put something precious in that precious space, and it will start framing your world in a precious frame, and that starts creating a precious life.
Do you have any specific routine that you use?
I love breath work. I love meditation. I do that every single day. I can do my breath work and my meditation whether I'm driving, whether I'm sitting in the anywhere. I can sit anywhere and do my breath work and meditation. I also am a firm believer in getting out in nature barefoot if you can and get grounded. Some people, their meditation is going on the beach and watching the sunrise or the sunset, or just being on the beach in the sun. That's a meditation for them. But it's important that we figure out what speaks to our soul and get our soul access to those things on a daily basis. Because if we feed the soul grows. But if we feed the entertainment, that's the ego, then the ego grows, and the ego can grow extremely large and take over our whole life.
Does Drake still talk to you?
Yes. he was he was chatting it up in the middle of our session today. Yeah.
That's incredible. I love it so much. What a blessing to have that connection to someone that loves you so deeply, because we don't really have that here on this planet.
We do, we just don't see it.
Mm.
You know, the love that a mother has for her to go out and get 3 jobs to take care of her kids, that's the same kind of love that Drake shows to me. And the love that a father has to um, do all of the unseen things that he does for his family, and mother too. That's the love that this is. We just have a hard time communicating it. We do, because most of us will communicate that love without any problem as long as we don't have to use our words. But the second you add words to it, it's hard for us to do. Um, and that, I think that's truly because we are not beings who communicate using words. We are beings who use intelligence to communicate. And that was something I experienced right away as soon as I passed over, as soon as I crossed over. I noticed that all communication was instantaneous, and it was consciousness to consciousness without using our mouths. So if you want to call that ESP, if you want to call that nonverbal communication, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't change the fact that it is how we communicate. It's how the animal kingdom communicates. They very rarely go to making any noises. Almost exclusively, most animals communicate with nonverbal communications. And that's how we are. It's us inventing these languages that has changed us.
A totally new perspective for me. I never thought about it like that. Very interesting. This near death experience, it kind of opened you up to wisdom, and you actually found some things, or did you have a vision of what's coming for the earth?
Well,
There were some earth changes.
what I saw was as I was coming back to my body, and I was being forced back into my body, I had to be slotted into my time. Because time does not exist in the heavenly realm at all. It's kind of like a stack of records. They are all stacked on top of each other, and that's kind of the way that heaven looks at time. Is all the timelines are all these records that are stacked on top of each other. And for me to go back, I had to choose my timeline to get back in on. And as I was trying to navigate that myself, I was being guided, but I was, being the person who likes to look over the fence a little bit as a kid. I like to see what is going on next door or see what's going to happen next. That's who I am. So I was looking towards what, as soon as I recognized there was a future I could see, I was looking towards it, and I saw this amazing pristine future for us. And I'll give a quick description of it. It's so different than right now. Number one, 80 to 90% of us aren't here anymore. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, for us to go from here to there, that's going to be perceived as a bad thing. But I will tell you, if we could see the outcome, we'll understand why it's necessary. Is when we have so many of us the way we do, we lose ourselves in our existence. We lose the importance of all life. And in this future, there's not big cities anymore. There's communities of light, and then there's survivor cities. And the survivor cities are these places where, like Chicago and New York, and actually not New York, no New York anymore at that point. Part of Chicago and part of some of these other cities, there's remnants there. And in those remnants, there's these little pods of tribes that are extremely violent towards each other, almost like gangs. And they survive by pillaging off of each other and pillaging any type of supply transport that they can get a hold of. And there's no evident government or military that I can perceive at that space. But what I do perceive is there's this society that is existing in true unconditional light and love for each other. but they live in these places that are very sporadic and random all over the entire planet, and most of them all in these mountains. And what they do is they live in a community way where all things are community property to each other. They love and care about each other's kids the way that you would your own kids. And if one couple has a child, it's everyone's child. Together, they raise the child. And it's very much like maybe the ancient Native Americans used to live before they, got into a lot of the warring, and they live in unison with nature, but they do have technology. They have supreme technology that it makes our iPhones look like wagons. It's way at the edge of what we can even perceive, but their technology allows them access to time and space. And it allows us to exist in the eternal body, like the body that I was traveling in when I was going to heaven, which was my energetic eternal body, or the physical body, or a hybrid of both. And uh, it would be something classified as like a glorified body. But if we're in the energetic body or the glorified body, we don't need to eat ever again. If we eat, it's because we choose to for entertainment, not because of need. We get just as much energy out of a loving act as we would get by sitting down and eating for an hour. So as long as we are keeping that synchronistic energy of love and connection to each other, we're keeping each other fulfilled and nourished. Now, we will have such a precious relationship with nature at that point that we can convince nature to create fruit for us that tastes exactly how we want it to taste. And that would be for, again, just for entertainment, not for sustenance. We don't need it for sustenance at that point. And the bad people, which there's still a lot of violent people at that point, but there are very few of them left. And the bad people, as they try to plot and find these communities of light, they can't find them. They can't even mark it on a map. They could be 10 feet away from the community and have no idea, because they're existing at two very different planes. The community of light exists at this much higher plane, and that's the long-term future for the world. How we get from where we are to there, I think we're going to see some crazy stuff happen. We are. I know about a little bit of it just from my own research and my own connection to spirit, knowing as I study something, I can feel, yep, that's how we get from here to there. I know that there's going to be real trauma happening to the planet, but I also know there's going to be perceived trauma that happens that's not real. But we're all going to be seeing it through our digital eyes, through our non-real eyes. And it's going to be vitally important for every single one of us to have an intuitive connection with our spirits, with our goal, with our creator, because there will be that moment where we're being pushed to believe what we're seeing with our eyes, but our intuition, if we have it plugged in, it will scream to us, do not believe this. This is not real. And we'll know not to follow what the rest of the world is doing. And when we are following that, it's keeping us and our family safe. It will be. And it will be the difference between survival or not, by following those intuitive nudges. But at the same right, if you know what is in store for you after you die, you shouldn't be afraid either. And that's why I don't take pause in the fact that we're going to lose a bunch of us off the planet Earth. I hope I'm in that group. I hope I get to be in that group. I hope my family gets to be in that group. They're going to have the easier life to be able to cross over and be on the other side. I do know that majority of those who are crossing over during this transition phase, that a lot of them will go into kind of a spiritual rehabilitation for a while, and then they'll come back and they're going to assist the people in the communities of light. Many, many, many. Countless millions will be doing that. They will be coming back and assisting those who are existing in the communities of light in a spirit form. Yeah.
I love how you describe it as being a beautiful thing. No matter if you make it to this new world or you cross over, both are equally beautiful. And so now you said that there's this some bad people and then the light communities, and they're existing on different kind of levels of frequency. How do they exist on that same earth in different levels of frequency?
So it's kind of like someone who can focus on hummingbirds' wings. They can see the wings, but those who don't have the ability, they can never see the wings, right? Unless the hummingbird stops moving. And that's the easiest way to explain it. We will be in the communities of light, we will be existing at such a high frequency of love energy that we will be unplottable. No one can find us unless they match our love energy. And if you match the love energy, you cannot hold a harmful intention towards that community. So it prevents anybody who holds a harmful intention ever from even being able to plot this. Now, there, as I speak, there's people trying to crack that technology and see if there's a way you can have a negative intention, but you can manipulate your thoughts towards that positive energy while having the negative intention, but it will never work. They can do all the research they want, they can do all the studying they want. It won't be allowed, period. Because it's a completely different frequency. You have to have what I call the Christ consciousness even to exist there. And what is the Christ consciousness? It's what Christ represents. It's this selfless, sacrificial love where you will do anything for the love and sanctity of others. And when you can get your consciousness at that Christ consciousness, you are opening yourself up to a whole world of communication. And people that are visionaries, people, good parents, they're getting access to that because they're good parents. They're accessing that Christ consciousness in being a really good parent.
Do you have any tips or practices that we can do to trust our intuition more?
I have a great tool that I learned from my publisher. He got this idea. It came to him in a dream, in kind of a dream vision, that you have to take care of your relationship with your creator first every day. And once you've taken care of that, then you need to take care of your spouse as priority number 2. And priority number 3, your kids. If you don't have any kids, good family or pets, and keep things in that priority. But while you're keeping things in that priority and putting the rest of the world outside of that, ask yourself every morning, who is it that needs me to reach out to them? And watch, you will get a specific name, a face, an idea of someone when you ask this question. But make sure you're asking the question. You ask to God, the universe, whatever you believe your deity is, ask to your deity and say, God, who is it that needs me today? And give God a moment to answer you. Wait for the answer. And when it comes, reach out to that person. Give them a text, give them a phone call, send them an email, go visit them if you can. But you'll be so surprised later in time. You're going to hear from these people that you reached out to, and you'll hear it many, many times. You'll hear it. I was just thinking I needed some help. I was reaching out to God that I needed someone to help me with this, and you showed up, and you were the symbol to me that God was still thinking about me and caring about me. And so it's not just us tapping into that Christ consciousness saying, hey, who needs me today? And it doesn't mean who needs me to sacrifice, just who needs me. And then reach out to those people. Watch their lives and your lives change simultaneously. We're built to do this. We are built to take care of each other. We think that technology is connecting us. It's not. It's giving us the illusion of connection. It's giving us the illusion of community. But if you can't say to 5 friends, I need some help tomorrow to move, and you can't get those 5 friends to show up, you don't have a community. Community is when you need something, people show up and they show out. They bring the help when you need it. That's community. We've lost that. Now, I could know what my next door neighbor from 15 years ago is doing today in her life, but I would feel very uncomfortable calling her. But yet I'm given the illusion that she's still in my community because she's on my social media, right? That's not real community. Real community is waking up, seeing those who you care about, and knowing at the drop of a hat, they would do anything for you. And at the same right, at the drop of a hat, you would do anything for them. That is community. And that is rare nowadays. Even in religion, it is extremely rare in this world. That is what's going to save this planet, is community. If anybody could take anything away from this, especially the futurists, those who are really infatuated with the future, anybody who's infatuated with that, know that you were born for this time. You were born for this time. You volunteered to come to Earth now. And Earth, being that it is the school that it is, know that you volunteered to be here now and relish in it. Relish that anything you need is in you right now. And this is something I tell people to tell themselves every single day, is that everything you need comes easily and effortlessly through God. Everything you need. If you've got a dilemma, if you have a predicament, if you have a problem, seek your answers through God, and God will give it to you. But don't be the guy who drives up to Starbucks, orders his drink, and then drives home complaining that he never got it. Like, go up and order, ask God for that help, but roll forward and stop for a moment so you can receive what you're asking for. And you can find out the price, if there's a price to be paid. But that's where we find out the answers, is not by driving straight home and complaining. God never gives you anything. Does that make sense?
That's beautiful, and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Most people in this world don't understand it. They forgot about it. Our ancestors knew it, though.
Mm-hmm. You're right. I think our modern day, just the culture, we've forgotten who we really are and how to communicate with God.
Like we know, anyone who's religious, they know that their body is a temple for their spirit, for their soul. And what's happened is we've allowed our eyes to be replaced with eyes. Our iPhones, our iPads, our Android phones, our Android pads. We've been replacing all of our spiritual eyes with these digital eyes. And now whoever controls those controls what we believe and what we see. And we can put the technology down. Give yourself a technology fast and start going within the holiest temple in the universe, right here, these 2 temples. That is the most holy place you can go. Holier than any place outside yourself. Go find some sanctity there and welcome to the universe. Because again, the universe is only you inside out. It is the you inverse.
I've enjoyed this immensely, Vinny, and I want to thank you so much for being my guest. If my viewers wanted to reach out to you, how can they find you?
So they can find me. All my connections are on at my nonprofit at Living God's Light. So livinggodslight.com. And they can schedule a session with me. They can order a book there. There's also a link that takes them right to Amazon to order on Amazon there too.
You're doing so much great work and helping so many people, and just coming on podcasts and sharing your story is helping so many, like we were talking about earlier. So I appreciate everything you're doing.
Well, I appreciate the work that you're doing. you're becoming one of the good options that people can use during the hour of power. So, supreme credit to you and your divine life purpose. You're fulfilling it. You are doing it. So thank you.
Well, thank you. That's a beautiful compliment. Thank you for being here. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you being here and supporting my channel. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing if you enjoy near death experiences and other spiritually transformative stories. It helps the algorithm know that this information is useful and push it out to more people. And that's the goal, to get as many people to know that we are eternal spiritual beings and that we never die. Our bodies might die, but our essence will never die. And I want people to live with less fear. Let's all spread the word. Like, comment, subscribe, share, hit that little notification bell so you get all the notifications when my videos post. Thank you for all of your support. I'm sending love to you.